To our beloved instructor in TE 511, Food and Nutrition, Mr. Florencio P. Payak. To my co-masterants in Master in Technology Education, good morning. I am Vanessa B. Salvador, and my topic to report is all about cookies, petit, pie, and pastries. Before we talk about cookies, I know that we are all familiar with it. When we hear about cookies, we can imagine a flat, crispy, and baked goods, right? Okay. We can describe a cookie as a small, sweet, and baked good. The basic ingredients of a cookie are flour, eggs, sugar, and oil. Some creative bakers include some ingredients such as raisins, oats, chocolate chips, or nuts to make it more flavorful and appealing. There are some characteristics of cookie includes crispness, moistness or softness, chewiness, and spread. When we say crispness, it refers to the hardness and brittleness of a cookie. A cookie is crispy if they are low in moisture. So you have to include a low proportion in the mix since most crisp cookies are made from a stiff dough. And you also have to add the granular sugar and fat content to achieve crispness. And another tip is to bake it long enough to evaporate most of the moisture. You can also shape the cookies into thin and small size so that it dries faster during the baking. And after the baking, you must store it in a proper storage so that it can avoid some moisture. Next characteristic is the softness. Softness means the presence of moisture in a cookie. So we can add the brown sugar to add softness, and the liquid in the mix must be in a high proportion and the sugar and fat must be low. Okay, you can also add honey, molasses, or corn syrup included in the formula. To achieve the softness, the cookie must be underbaked. And you can also shape it into large size or thick shape so that it can retain moisture. And the proper storage of the cookie to achieve softness, it must be stored in a tightly covered or wrapped. Next is the chewiness. The chewiness is somehow related to the softness of the cookie, and it must be a high sugar content and liquid content but low in fat content. You can also add high proportion of eggs to achieve more chewiness, and the strong flour or gluten developed during the mix. Next is the spread. When we say spread, it means the expansion of a cookie during the baking. Okay, for example, the crinkles. Before baking, the crinkle looks very small, and then after the baking, it cracks. So it means that it has spread or expansion of the cookie during the baking. You must also include the high proportion of baking soda or baking ammonia content to encourage spread. You can also turn the oven temperature into low so that it can increase the spread, and when you turn the temperature into high, it decreases the spread of the cookie. A slack batter, that is one with a high liquid content, spreads more than the stiff dough. Another thing, the strong flour or activation of gluten, it decreases spread. And cookies spread more if baked on the greased pans. Now let's proceed to the type of cookies. We have 8 type of cookies. First is the bag cookies. Next is the drop. We have rolled, molded, icebox, bar, sheets, and stencil. The first type of cookie is the bagged or pressed. The bagged or pressed cookies are made from soft doughs. Okay, the dough must be soft enough to be forced through a pastry bag but stiff enough to hold its shape. So as you can see in the picture, these are the examples of bagged or pressed cookies. Next is the drop. Okay, just like the bagged cookies, the drop cookies are made from soft dough. Okay, from the word drop, the cookie mixture was dropped to make this kind of cookie. Next type of cookie is the rolled cookie. This type of cookie was rolled and cut from a stiff dough. Okay, it mostly are made in homes because they required excessive labor. Next type of cookie is molded. Each piece is then molded into desired shapes. Okay, traditional cookies, special molds are used to flatten the dough. As you can see in the picture, the cookies are molded into different shapes, different patterns. Next is the icebox. The icebox or refrigerator method is ideal for operations that wish to have freshly baked cookies on hand at all times. You can also made up in advance and stored it before baking. Next type is bar cookie. This procedure is called the bar method because the dough is baked in long, narrow strips and later cut crosswise into bars. Before we think that cookies are just in a circle shape, but we have the bar method. The bar method is proving that not all cookies are circle. Next, we have the sheet cookies. Some of them are almost like a sheet cakes, only denser and richer. They may even be iced like sheet cakes. And the last one is the stencil. The stencil method is a specialized technique used with a particular type of soft dough or batter. As we can describe the cookie in the picture, the baker used another stencil paper and then the design was placed there and then it is transferred to the cookie. Next, let's proceed to the pies and pastries. Pies are baked goods that have crust and filling. And pastry comes from the word paste, meaning a dough mixture of flour, liquid, and fat. So basically, we can say that all pies are pastry, but not all pastry are pies. So they have the connection. And then we have the classification of pie crust. First is the single or one crust. As you can see in the picture, this is an example of single or one crust. And then the next is the graham cracker or crushed cookie. So the crust of the pie is made of graham cracker and crushed cookie. So this classification of pie crust only cover those pie that has sweet flavor. The third classification is the double or two crust, because the first or the single crust is at the bottom of the pie, and then the second or the double crust is at the top of the pie. Next is the decorative cutout. As you can see in the picture, that the second crust or the double crust are decorated through cutting the dough, just like in the picture. We have the heart shape cut out, and if you are creative, you can also include some shapes or patterns as a decorative cutout. Next is the crumb top. When we say crumb top, it is described as a crumb on the top of the pie. Okay, so you can see in the picture that there's a crumb at the top. That's what we call crumb top. And then the next is lattice. When we say lattice, it refers to the decorative style. It's not a cutout, but it's a lattice, since it forms like a banig. Okay, let's proceed to the Petit. Now, what comes to your mind when you hear the word Petit? Okay, from the word Petit means small. Okay. Now, the history of Petit is it originated in France, which means little oven or small oven. Petit were traditionally made in a smaller oven next to the main oven. Back when it was 18th century, French bakers would put them in the oven after baking bread, while they are waiting for the high temperature to cool. Now, what exactly is the Petit? Petit are tiny cookies served at the end of the meal, usually with a cup of tea or coffee. It is a small confectionery or savory appetizer. These are also after dinner delights, extend now to include small, fancy cookies, tiny tarts, and confectionery, such as chocolate-coated fruits, marzipan sweets, and nut confections. Okay, we have the three varieties of Petit. First is the Petit sec or dry. This type of Petit are created with cookies rather than cake. It can also be created using butter or sugar cookies. Okay, we have a lot of example in the dry Petit. We have the meringues, we have macaroons, marshmallow, shortbread, sables, and biscuit. Next variety of Petit is Petit glaze or glazed. It is the most common type of Petit that you will find within the United States. These pastries are made from sponge cakes or pound cake with layers of chocolate, fruit, or buttercream in the center. Okay, we have a lot of examples. Some examples are miniature cakes, miniature eclairs, tart glass, and cream puffs. It is glazed since we use some liquid or icing or liquid chocolate to glaze the Petit. Third and last variety of Petit is the Petit Sale, or it means salted. Okay, these are savory bites that usually accompany a glass of wine or champagne. It is likely to appear at the beginning of a meal and are perfect to nibble on a while while you wait for the main affair. Okay, this petit is salted, therefore we can use it as an appetizer while you wait for the main affair or the main dish. Okay, some examples of this type of variety are cheese straws, miniature croissants, cheese biscuits, we have the savory tartlets, and small pizzas. And that ends my presentation about cookies, petit four, pies, and pastries. Thank you for watching.